So a few weeks ago, I got this dress and I wore it for some video. I think it was a deep dive. Pretty sure it was a deep dive. I remember cornstarch. Did I do a deep dive on cornstarch already? Anyway, point is, when I picked up the kids and I was wearing this that day, they're like, "Oh my God, Mom, we have the same dresses." And I didn't remember having bought those dresses for them. And as soon as we got home, they went out and they got them. And they're like, "Look, look, same dresses." And I'll be damned if we don't have the same dresses. And so today, they asked if they could wear their versions of this dress and if I could wear mine. And I'm like, well, of course. And so the point of all of that is me and my daughters, we're dressed alike today. And I'm not sorry for that because that's fun. And every second that I get with the kidlets still wanting to be matchy matchy with me, I'm going to frickin' take because time has zoomed by and it's only a matter of very minute time until the kidlets don't want to have anything to do with me at all. So that's what's going on today. It's not the point of the video. We're not making like an eyelet peach dress or whatever today. But like, this is my time here. If you don't like it at this point, I don't know why you're actually watching because this is what we do. I will tell you what soap we are making in just a minute. But before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, Sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You're at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things, and you are here for day 145 of 365 days of soap, and today we are doing Queen Mary. Bloody Mary. I hate that name. I hate that this person is remembered just by that. And that's actually kind of why I decided to do this entire like sister set thing within like the royal, because all of these women are just kind of misremembered for, well, history, his story, whatever. And I think that there's more to them than just the Cliff's Notes that we are given about any of these women, really. And so, yes, we are going to be doing Queen Mary, daughter of Henry VIII, in soap form. And while we are doing this, we are going to be talking about the history and the historicity surrounding Queen Mary and everything that she was and is and what we know her for today. And we're doing this because I want to. I like history. I really love the Tudor era of history, and we're gonna talk about it while making some really cool soap. So, let's go to the video, and we'll talk about said things while we make said soap. Okay, we are making the Mary bar. Bloody Mary. And you know what? That's messed up in and of itself, because, did she kill like 300 people for being Protestant instead of Catholic? Yes, yes, she did. Is that awful? Yes, yes, it is. And I'm not going to get into a this is why I don't religion discussion, but this is why I don't religion, because that's gross. But also, did her father also kill a crap ton of people for their religious beliefs or just because he wanted to? Yes. How about Elizabeth after Mary? Did she also kill people specifically because of their religious beliefs? Also, yes. And here's the thing. This is how things worked back then. I mean, this is the 1500s. Let's keep that in mind, right? The rulers were not particularly known for being benevolent. This is how you controlled your masses. This is how you won territories. It was violent and gross and awful and had been for thousands of years prior. And arguably, it is still that way today. Like we see what's going on in Afghanistan right now, as an example. It's a thing. So, is it gross? Yes. Do I agree with it? Of course, I don't agree with it. But to completely ignore everything else that she was as a ruler, as a human, and the things that she went through in being a ruler and a human, and just to diminish everything that she is down to this Bloody Mary term is like super wild to me. Why don't we have like horrific Henry or evil Elizabeth? I know that Bloody Mary isn't alliteration, but I like alliteration, and they both murdered people. And so why is it that we get to remember Henry as Henry VIII and Elizabeth as Elizabeth I and look at their actual, ruling record and the good things and bad things that they did with just their name and not this whole Bloody Mary thing? Because I tell you what, you go Google Queen Mary, and likely the first 5 freaking hits on Google, they're not going to be Mary, like Bloody Mary. They're going to be Mary of Scots. It's going to be Mary of Guise. It's not going to be Mary the First of England, the very first female ruler to ever exist in England. It's going to be something else. If you want information on Mary, daughter of Henry VIII, you have to look up Bloody Mary. And I don't really think that that's fair because she did really, really good and interesting things in the very short time that she was actually, ruling, because she was only ruling for like 3 or 5 years. It's like 5 years, right? Yeah, like 5 years. And she did really cool things for England and fixed a lot of problems that came from her father and her brothers' years that they were reigning. And really set the stage for Elizabeth to become the best and most influential ruler that England has probably ever known. And so, but we don't talk about that. We don't think about that. We just say, oh, Bloody Mary, crazy Catholic, murdered a bunch of people, burned them at the stake. And yeah, she did burn people at the stake. She did that. But so did a lot of other people. You know what I mean? And like this poor kid, she was not a kid when she did all these things. She was a grown up, but she had a weird life. There was a lot of flip flopping from a really weird dad. And that had to have been hard in and of itself. And I have my own theories on Henry VIII and why he ultimately became the person that he became. But we're not making a Henry VIII soap. We're making a Mary soap. And I know I'm like talking so much shit about how we should not just define her as Bloody Mary. But this particular soap, it has a flame pattern. It is a Castile soap to honor her mother's heritage. And it's scented with wine because she was a really big Catholic and communion was a whole ass thing. So I'm leaning into it a little bit too with the theme. I guess that makes me a hypocrite. Whatever. We're going to talk about Mary outside of being Bloody Mary while we pour this thing. So let's get to the pour. Okay, so Mary, born in 1516 to Catherine of Aragon and Henry VIII. Catherine of Aragon from Spain, the aunt of the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. As an aside, the Holy Roman Empire versus the Roman Empire, that is a fascinating thing, but I can only shoehorn so much history into a soap pour, and so we're not talking about that one today and or ever, but go look it up. It's interesting. Anyway, because of the whole term holy in the Roman emperor thing, This basically meant that Catherine of Aragon, because she was the aunt of the Holy Roman Emperor, had like a direct line to God, right? Because the Pope was reasonably influential in the selection of all of the emperors. Anyway, so Henry VIII, cool guy, weird guy. Wouldn't really call him cool. Don't know why I just called him cool. His thing with the whole wanting a son thing, I used to always think that was like cuckoo bananas. But as I have gotten older and like understood things more, I realized that this was actually a really important thing for a number of reasons. One, there had never been a time when a female had ever actually been granted the throne. It had been bandied about like 200 or 300 years before Henry VIII's time, but it was not met with good. It was not good. And so Mary was born, and she wasn't a boy, and Henry really needed a boy. The reason why Henry really needed a boy was because the Tudors effectively stole the the throne. They're like the Plantagenets, right? They were this whole family, like the Tudor dynasty. It's like that, like the Plantagenet dynasty. And they like branched off, and there were the Lancasters and the Yorks. And they spent a whole bunch of time fighting each other and killing each other out to the point where like the Lancaster line was completely killed out, which is messed up. And Henry's father essentially stole the throne through a not really strong connection to the line through the Lancasters, which again, as I just said, had already been like destroyed. And it was like through his mom's line, and then there was like, it was a whole thing. And so he really needed to ensure, like all monarchs do really, that the dynasty continues. And so the easiest way to do that is through a son. And so he wanted a son, disappointed that he had a kid or had a daughter as a kid, but did not treat Mary like that. Mary was well loved by Henry, by Catherine. She received the best education. She was doted on. She received an education like a man. She was given the title of Princess of Wales, which had before never happened. Not the official title, but an honorary, whatever. She was given her own houses and income and all the things that typically did not happen with princesses. She was well loved. And then all of a sudden, it stopped. And her father is now calling her illegitimate and saying that the marriage is illegitimate and that's awful and terrible. And this went on for like a decade, right? Before Henry VIII was finally able to, well, screw you, I'm going to create Church of England and I'm the ruler and I can do what I want, and just, told the Pope to kick rocks and did his own thing and married Anne Boleyn. But for like a decade of her life, Mary was like, wait, so do you like me? Do you not like me? What's the deal? Point is, for a long time in her life, her position with her father was always very confusing. Legitimate, not legitimate. And that's going to mess with a person's head quite a bit, right? And so she turned to her mother and Catholicism to really get her through all of the weirdness going on at home. Okay, so anyway, all of these things are going on in her life. She never knows where she stands with life, really, and things are always being taken away from her. And finally, in 1553, when her boy brother king Edward dies, oh, there's still another weird cut. Sorry. When he dies at the age of 15, she assumes the throne. But she wasn't supposed to assume the throne. He tried to do a dirty deed and make Lady Jane Grey the new ruler, which is weird. But the only reason that he wanted to do that was because Mary big into the Catholicism thing, and Edward was Protestant. And it didn't work out. She became queen, and she presented, when she came into England with her armies and all the things, she presented with Elizabeth as a unified front, because Elizabeth was also going through this same shit. It was a big deal for both of them, and they were experiencing this like a decade apart, at least. And it's through all of this, because I think of her Catholic faith and how she really clung to that and her heritage that was still sort of steady and stable, the people in the Holy Roman Empire and whatnot, that she really developed and honed her, and then also her mom, the whole Catholicism thing. And so she's going to restore Catholicism to England. And religious wars are shitty and they're stupid and all of it is gross and disgusting and bad. And I get it. And also, those bars are beautiful. It's a flame pattern, really leaned into the whole Bloody Mary thing with that, but it's also gorgeous. And if you put them together, it looks like a crown. Anyway, in addition to burning a bunch of people alive, which is horrific, she also cleaned up her father and her brother's mistakes. Because the Tudor dynasty was in debt. England was in debt, massive amounts of debt, when she assumed the throne. And so she put new financial systems in place. She expanded the navy for England. She really started leaning into exploration and going into like South Africa or West Africa and, well, claiming territories. And so colonialism is really bad. But, back then, this is how England became a great dynasty, how they became a good, whatever, you get it. But anyway, she did a bunch of amazing things in just the 5 years time that she was in power, while also murder, death, killing people, that we don't remember her for. And that Queen Elizabeth, when she assumed the throne, she looks at the lay of the land and goes, oh, we've expanded the navy. Oh, we're into exploration. Oh, how about the Americas? I mean, Queen Mary started that all. Queen Mary put the things in place, like different economic financial systems that she ultimately would not live long enough to even see as viable, but they became viable during her sister's rule. But she did these things. Again, in addition to murdering a whole bunch of people. And so that's shitty. But also, we like to remember Elizabeth for being the Virgin Queen and the purveyor of the arts. And I am going to fangirl on Queen Elizabeth like you would not believe tomorrow, because tomorrow's her bar. But Mary is influential and important, if only for the only reason that she was the first female ruler to ever exist in England. And we don't give her that credit. She deserves that credit. It's a whole thing. And anyway, these bars are very pretty. And as I said, it's a Castile soap and it's a wine bar. And I should have found a way to make this whole thing way, way longer, because I really want to give more information than this weird Cliff's Notes thing about Queen Mary the First. But she was the first. She was the first female ruler. She paved the way for Elizabeth to be as influential and important as she was. And she had a weird life and an important life. And she made very good decisions for England as a whole, except for that whole killing 300 people thing, which is a pretty big thing. But that's day 145. And there it is, Queen Mary. And yes, gorgeous. Completely. Now, again, the reason why I had this idea in the first place was because I was cutting in half some bars that had a flame pattern on them to put into the bits and bobs bags. And when I opened them and saw the beautiful, almost crown-like pattern inside, these bars, the Mary bar, was born. And the flames and the red and the whatever, and it's smelling of wine, because communion wine and Catholicism and all of the things, it all worked out for sure. And I love them. And I hope you come back to see what I do with Mary's sister, whose name is like, I don't know, something about Elizabeth. If you're interested in seeing what I do with Mary's sister, whose name I think is Elizabeth, yeah, subscribe, do the thing for sure. If you're interested in getting these bars, you can't do so yet. We're not done with the series. We're halfway there. We've got 3 down. We have 3 to go. Once it is done, you can pick them up at soapandclay.com. Absolutely. I am out of here for today. I hope you guys had fun today. Maybe learned some cool history. Maybe comment and interact with me down below about history, because that's fun. And I like interacting with you guys just in general. And I appreciate you guys having, fed my desire to do this historical theme, whatever. And yeah, no, I will see you guys all again tomorrow for another round of soapy fun. Bye.